being said, why are regulations needed?
I thought we kind of touched on that earlier. I really think, really, as we've been charged, the FAA, unmanned aircraft, our aircraft, that was established. And as we have been charged with accommodating unmanned aircraft in the national airspace system and integrating them safely. And that is what we do as a federal agency, as the Federal Aviation Administration. We keep our airspace safe. And so regulating this new technology, as you mentioned, James, is how we integrate unmanned aircraft. And I think between Rich and James, I really think we kind of covered that. I think the way the NPRM was developed actually does a very good job of differentiating and preserving model aircraft operations and keeping them from undue control that we think of in terms of commercial operations. My perspective on that one.
In looking at the questions, I believe you have answered, or we have answered, the majority of the questions. There's a couple that I have here that I'm not going to impose on you because I don't understand them myself. Therefore, does anyone else have questions in?
Are you considering a separate category for hovering aircraft which have surveillance capabilities because they're being sold at the show now?
I think there's a lot of sensitivity with the public overall. I have a video data link on my Big Stick 60, and I go out and we barnstorm, and I try to get some cool footage, and so that's sport and recreation, and I don't think anybody has any problem with that. If your neighbor has a swimming pool and you use your little recreational device to hover over the swimming pool and take pictures of your neighbors, that probably isn't going to go over very well, and they'll probably call the local authorities and deal with it through local authorities. I think what we're looking at, and what Lynn's leadership is with working with the AMA, is developing standards that allow for model aviation for sport and recreation and education and those kinds of events. If the standard comes up and is reviewed by the FAA and invoked as a means to comply with the rule coming out, and it doesn't have video surveillance as part of it, I would think that you fall under whatever other regulations for privacy are out there. So I don't think that AMA has taken on the task of including video operations in it. So, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a broader set of issues. It's a very good point. It's real. I know that on the small UAS portion of the whole effort, which is substantially greater than what's going on with the model, and Lynn could probably talk to this much better, that they have a lot of privacy concerns. There have been a lot voiced. Have they been worked out, or is there something in place, not specifically when it comes to the model standards effort?
And we're not really involved with any of that discussion, debate, determination as to privacy issues. That's really beyond what we do in our office in the FAA. My son's gift for Christmas was a helicopter with a little camera on it, so, but he's only flying it for fun. But, I suppose it comes, we really don't we're not going into really that, and I think that's just some other part of the government that will determine what the privacy laws are with these new technologies, because I suppose no American wants some camera at their, windows looking in their, but that's really totally outside of what we're trying to do or what we can do.
It is a big issue.
Yeah, just not our issue.
The FAA and the NTSB have records on every mid-air or near miss or,
That came up this week in the discussions during the standards workshop. And to directly answer your question, I'm unaware of specific numbers that tie to that. They may exist, not aware of it. But in the discussions at the workshop, we were talking about some of the definitions that AMA is coming up with. That they're looking at aviation definitions of you know, what does it mean to stay away from manned aircraft and not pose you know, a risk to those folks that are flying the manned aircraft. And what does it take to make it into a number? If I was flying a 172 and there was a model, and I go, it scared me. That was a model, and I reported it. That reporting of it would be logged in somewhere in some system somewhere, I'm sure. So what's that?
Yeah, I was just saying we don't currently have any such system.
So I don't. We've gone back and forth in our discussions about how to actually document what that distance should be, or how you can stay well clear, because I would be suspect of the numbers, whether they be more aggressive on the numbers and say that there's thousands of those, and I'd say, well, were they really? Or if there weren't very many, maybe there were a lot of instances where they were very close and it's just, that was a model or something. So I don't know that that would be representative of what's really going on anyway.
Well, we do have within our office, we have an entire group dedicated to data. And currently they are trying to assimilate how are we going to measure accidents and incidents for unmanned aircraft. For the big ones, up at 18,000 feet that are as big as 737s, or for the little ones, or for models. Because we will want there and need there to be some kind of way, you know, to track things like that, just as we do in manned aviation. And I think that's an ongoing effort to figure out how they're going to do it, what they want to track, what they would, want to know about. That
Currently unaware.
currently, we've never monitored or kept a numeric system for model aircraft.
Okay, folks, we have time for one last question.
Okay, if the AMA doesn't like the final rule put out by the FAA, what is the AMA going to do? Because there is precedent for the FAA shoving rules down the public's throats that certain constituencies don't like.
Rich?
Could I go before Rich? Sure.
Certainly.
Well, I'll and nothing personal, right? No. I'll tell you this, that I'm a modeler and I'm a U.S. citizen, and when the rule comes out, there's a public comment period, and each and every one of us, myself included, has the right and responsibility to read that as modelers and figure out if we like what it says and comment. And I would suggest that if you're going to comment on it, that you comment meaningfully. That if you see something in the rule, or if I see something in the rule, my plan is to be specific about what I like or don't like about it. And if I see something that's I think restrictive in how I want to fly my model airplanes, I'm going to say that this piece of that proposed rule does something that isn't going to allow me to fly, and this is why that's inappropriate or not reasonable. And I will be submitting my own comments to the rule, as I would suggest if you feel that the rule doesn't represent how to fly models safely or doesn't allow for that, then comment. I think that your biggest bang for the buck from an AMA perspective, which I pay dues, is that this standards effort is really, I don't know if you've kept track of hours, but I've spent a lot of hours, and I have a team of a bunch of really smart engineers in Washington that have spent a lot of hours along with Lynn's leadership and her hours, and so a lot of time is being spent to make this very successful, and give a lot of consideration and really position model aviation, as I said earlier, to flourish. So how is AMA going to deal with the notice of proposed rulemaking when it comes out? That's an organizational issue. I, as a modeler, am going to read it, and where I don't think it's fair or I don't think that it's going to allow me to fly models the way I want, I'm going to comment on it.
Do you want me to, or do you want to answer?
Go ahead.
I think you'll find that the Academy at present has several varied plans as to how we're going to contend with the NPRM. There's more variables than what have been presented by these folks. There is an act in front of Congress that could affect various different activities. You know, it's very peculiar. I spent the better part of the week before Christmas out in Muncie. We sat down with several people and definitely have plans of action. Notice I said plans because of the different things that can happen. I got off the airplane here in Ontario, looked, and I see, ooh, date for NPRM has changed. Changes our game plan too. So the biggest thing that I could advise you folks is that we need the accurate email address of every member in this room or in your club or in your district or whatever. Spread the word that communication is extremely important for the Academy. Right now we have roughly a 10% error on our email list. We have to cut that down. Last year, we did put out a mass email advising you as to act. We had a pretty decent return on that, and I know that it had some effect. However, we have to increase that return. When you get home, explain to your partners or your, let's say your flyers, that yes, there is a problem. You've heard what the folks from the FAA have to say about it. I know that in talking with them a year ago or at the NOL or whatever, I know that what we've been doing with the Academy, working with the FAA, I think it definitely is a positive relationship. I know, for example, with what Lynn knew a year ago when she was here versus what she knows now, I think there's a wealth of information that she's acquired. James has admitted that he's a modeler for over 30 years. He certainly knows what's there. So the Academy is working for its members. Is there a plan of action? There certainly is. To tell you exactly what it's going to be today, I certainly cannot. So keep your cards and letters coming.